Great. So most of us will use maps in our research, and many of us are aware that maps are not just spatial representations, but also representations of power. So I just wanted to take literally a couple minutes to talk about how participatory mapping can introduce an additional mechanism for bringing some critical perspectives to conservation research. So what is participatory mapping? It's an approach to spatial information management that is based on citizen engagement with the research, knowledge creation, as well as associated social political processes. It's intended to empower underrepresented communities or groups in a user-friendly, demand-driven way that integrates geospatial applications in order to kind of facilitate a more critical engagement with the issue at hand. What it's not is confined by strict cartographic or institutional standards or forms, and it's not a fixed process that should be guided exclusively by a single individual or institution, nor is it something that uses a single methodology or a specific type of technology. When it's used is in many different types of research that relate to conservation. Crisis management, such as this image capture here of a crowdsourced mapping activity to support humanitarian efforts during the recent Ebola outbreaks in West Africa. Other type of activities such as sustainable resource management, wildlife conservation, and property rights associated with indigenous land holdings. Some of the strengths of participatory mapping are that it engages local citizens, first and foremost, in representing and analyzing their own spatial processes that are ongoing. It is also an alternative form of representation for different stakeholders or interests. And it's an iterative process of creation and reflection that often leads to a more critical understanding of an issue. Some limitations as well. First and foremost is that it's often very difficult for this type of map to be recognized by the authorities or other stakeholders, powers that be, that are involved in the particular case that's being studied. And it can be difficult to validate either the data or the results that are being represented through these participatory maps. So a few considerations for the researcher. One, first and foremost, it's collaborative and cooperative. So this is a very certain set of skills that the researcher then needs to be able to manage in addition to the technical skills. It has implications for action research, meaning that you need to consider legal and political ramifications of this process. Appropriate technology. The latest, greatest, highest tech, most advanced technology isn't necessarily the most appropriate tool to be using in different communities or in different situations. And it can sometimes even be exclusionary to participation rather than inclusionary. Also, the intellectual property of this information that's being shared and ultimately mapped. And so therefore, there should be some kind of concept of reciprocity built into the research dynamic here so that this information is returned to the communities that are providing it, it's acknowledged, and not just held by the individual researcher or the institutions themselves. So in conclusion, is participatory mapping inherently critical? No, I would say not necessarily at all. It's how you do it. But I would say that the processes of participatory mapping generally facilitate opportunities for critique and reflection. And that's sort of the conclusion that I've arrived at with this. Thank you very much.